everyone. Thanks for being here. I'm Katie Earl. I'm the coordinator of the University Express program, and we're here virtually with my colleague, Ryan Gadzo. Welcome, Ryan.
Good morning.
All right, well, thank you for being here and teaching us all about these sports that I'm sure we've heard about, but don't really know much about. And so to everybody who's here, welcome as well. We'll do our standard format. So as Ryan goes through his class, if you have any questions, type those in the Q&A panel. We'll try to get to as many as we can in the time that we have here this morning. And we are recording the session, so I'll try to post it on the website early next week so you can be sure to tell your friends what they're missing. All right, so we'll thank our sponsors real quick, which is our Department of Senior Services, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Western New York, Excelsior Orthopedics, and Wegmans for all their support. And Senior Services is here for you if you ever have any questions about programs, services, anything at all. And even if you're not sure where to start with us. We're at 858-8526. All right, Ryan Gadzo. For those of you who do not already know him, he currently serves as the research analyst for Erie County Senior Services. He has both a bachelor's and master's degree from Buffalo State College in political science and public administration, respectively. He's a fantasy sports enthusiast and a Bills season ticket holder for over 5 years. Welcome, Ryan. Thank you for being here. It's all yours.
Well, thank you, Miss Earl, for that lovely introduction, and thank you, everyone, for showing up today. So, yes, you know me. I love my sports, and these are some wacky sports that I have played a couple, and some of them I've heard of and just wanted to know more about. So, I am not an expert. I am just an enthusiast. So, if anyone has played these things, followed these things, if I get something wrong, please correct me in the chat or in the Q&A box. I'm sorry, in the Q&A box. Like I said, Katie, if something does pertain to what we're going over, one of the sports, just flag me down. Let me know we got a question. I will do my best to answer it. Like I said, this isn't football 101, 201, or fantasy sports, so I'm not an expert, but I will do my best. And we are off. Sport number 1, which I have played, badminton. Badminton was first played in Gloucestershire, England in 1873 and was named after the estate at which it was first played, the Badminton Estate. The roots of the sport have been traced back to ancient China, Greece, and India. The Badminton World Federation, or BWF, was established in 1934 and acts as the sport's governing body. And the sport was finally recognized as a full medal sport in the Olympics in 1992, 20 years after it was first demonstrated at the Games. How to play and the rules. All matches, whether in singles or doubles format, are best of 3. Each player is equipped with a racket that is used to hit the shuttlecock or birdie back and forth over the net. The shuttlecock or birdie is the ball in this sport, being equipped with a cork or rubber end, and then at the other one, it's going to have a feather end, which is either real or synthetic, most likely plastic, coming out the other. The players hit the birdie back and forth over the net in what is called a rally, very similar to like tennis or volleyball. The team that wins the rally scores a point and then is given the serve until the other team breaks the serve and by winning one of the rally points. Matches are played until one player, or in doubles format team, scores 21 points. A team must win by 2 points. Or in the result of a 29-29 tie, the first team to 30 is the victor. Like I stated earlier, the team that won the previous point is allowed the serve, which would start the next rally for the next point when the serve comes into play legally. The team or person serving must serve the birdie across the court diagonally, opposite of position. So if you're on the left-hand side of the court on one side, you must serve it to the player on the right-hand side of the court opposite you. If it doesn't break over the threshold, because I will go back and show us our court real quick. So if you see how the court's broken down on the screen, you see that little tee box. So in double format, each player kind of stands in that box or behind it. And if you're standing on the left-hand side, you have to serve to the right corner and it must land in play. Or if you're standing on the right-hand side of the box, you must serve to the left-hand corner and get into that box area for it to be a legal serve. I did play a lot of badminton in high school. I was class champion, so toot for that. All right, so where were we? All right, so in doubles format, teams alternate who serves based on who wins the point. Once a player loses their serve, their partner will be serving after they win the next rally. All right, so that's badminton. Katie, do we have any questions on badminton?
One question. Do the
Mhm.
players on the same team switch sides of the court?
Yes, they can alternate when as they serve. Yep, they go back and forth. So if your first serve, if you score on the rally, then you can move to the left side and they can alternate sides when serving as well. Yep.
Thank you.
Any other questions on that?
That was the only one I'm seeing.
All right. If you do have questions, you can save them to the end or just throw them in there like Katie said earlier. All right. The next sport we will talk about is cricket. So, cricket it is. Cricket. The first cricket games are believed to date back to the 13th century. You will need 2 bats and 1 ball in order to play cricket. If you look to the left, I'm going to kind of explain how the field is set up. The pitch area, if you look to the left, is 66 feet long, and the space between batters is 45 feet long. So then the infield is a 30-yard oval, and then the whole field is an oval between 450 and 500 feet. So as you can see in the picture here, you have the batter with his bat, which is flat on one side, but it has a curvature on the other side to give the weight behind it. As you can see, you have what they would call the catcher or one of the fielders behind him. And those 3 little sticks that are sitting behind the batter are called wickets. The rules and how to play. I got to minimize you, Miss Earl. All right. Rules and how to play. Each team has 11 players and can substitute 1 player in case of an injury. There are 2 umpires in each game as well who will dictate pace of play, call outs, things of that nature. A coin flip is used to decide which team starts in the field and which team starts batting. I believe the away team does get to call the coin flip. The batting team sends out 2 batters to start the inning, and the fielding team selects a player to act as bowlers who pitch or bowl the ball to the batters. After the batting team, so the reason why they send 2 batters up is because they run back and forth when the ball is put in play to score runs. So once the team has 10 of their batters out, the 11th batter cannot go up because there's not a second person to run back and forth. And the team switch sides. The team batting goes into the field. The team in the field goes to batting. Each team, this is one of the crazy things about cricket, is each team is only allowed 1 inning to bat. So pretty much however many runs you score, if you're the team that starts, you have to hope that the other team doesn't score that many when they come up. So matches come in a T20, 20 overs per inning, a day match, 50 overs per inning, or a test match, which is 90 overs per inning. And you're probably thinking, what the heck is an over? Well, I'm going to tell you. A bowler is allowed 6 legal bowls before an over occurs. That pretty much just is indicating that after those 6 legal bowls are done, that the fielding team needs to switch that bowler out. In a typical match can allow 20, 40, 50, or 90 overs per inning. And the thing about the overs is they just keep switching who's pitching with the guys in the field. So you might be playing, let's just say you're in the outfield, they bring you in. Once you hit an over, they bring another person in to pitch. So they keep rotating the pitching as well as the batters bat. A batter can get out in a variety of ways. The first way is by having a ball hit into the air and caught by a fielder before the ball hits the ground, very similarly to baseball. And I'm pretty sure in cricket they do not wear gloves. They don't have like a catching glove, other than like I think the catcher of the batter does have a glove, but he's the only one. I believe all the other guys in the field are just barehanded, which is quite interesting in this because you got to think that ball's got to be moving pretty fast. The second way is if the batter misses the bowl of the pitcher and hits the stumps or wickets behind the batter. So remember, our three little wickets are behind the batter. If the bowler successfully hits one of them, the batter is considered out. The third way is by LBW, or leg before wicket. This out call is made at the discretion of the umpire if they feel that the ball would have hit the stumps or wickets if the batter was not in the way. So it's kind of like playing goalie while you're up to bat to keep the bat alive. The fourth way to get out is if the ball is fielded and it hits the wicket prior to the batter running to it. So like I said, so if I start in home position here and I make it down to the other wicket, that's 1 point. But say I think I have enough time for myself and my other batter to get back and they throw the ball and knock one of the wickets over before I touch it, I am out. So I would have scored 1 run, but on my way back to score a second run, I would be out. The fifth and sixth ways are much less common, but they do occasionally happen. The fifth is when a batter hits one bowler pitch twice. Like as he hits it, he like clips it and hits off the ground, and as he follows through, he hits it again. That would be considered an out. And the sixth way is if a batter somehow interfields with a fielder. Let's say they pop it up into the air, and as they're running, they run into each other as he's trying to catch it. That would be considered the batter out as well. Scoring. Like I said, a team scores when a batter hits the ball and each batter safely reaches the opposing side of the pitch. This scores one run for the batting team. Like I said, batters keep running until points are scored or the ball is returned to the bowler who's bowling at that point in time. If a batter hits the ball and it hits the ground but reaches the boundary of the field that they are playing in, it is worth 4 runs, and the batters do not have to run to the opposite side of the pitch. Also, if a batter hits the ball over the boundary in the air, this is the highest scoring hit in the game, and that batter and team earns 6 runs. So that's pretty much cricket in a nutshell. Miss Earl, do we have any questions on that?
We do.
Okay.
This first one, so is an over like a pitching switch?
Yes. Yep. So when the bowler who's currently bowling hits that 6 legal bowls or an over, yes, they will switch. And depending on the format of the match, like I said, they can allow 20 overs per inning, 40 overs per inning, 50 overs per inning, or 90 overs per inning, depending on the type of match they're playing. That's just pretty much how many pitching switches they're allowed in the field.
Okay, thanks. This next person's wondering, what is a typical score at the end of a game?
It could be 1-0, depending on how well the pitchers are pitching and the fielders are playing. The score could really be quite large depending on the format as well. Like I said, they do have the different style matches, the T20, the day match, and the test match. Like the T20 is usually like more like your typical baseball game, like a 2.5, 3 hour game. The day match can last over like 6 hours to 9 hours, and those test matches can be played over a series of days. So it really depends on the type of match they're playing, and then again, depending on how the team, with how good their bowlers are, how good their batters are, it can vary depending on the format.
Thanks, Ryan. The last one I'm seeing is the ball hard like a baseball or a lacrosse ball?
Yep, so you could see on the screen that we currently have it, there is the ball. It's got a hard center, very similar to a baseball. So it is a harder ball. I believe that it does have a little bit more give to it as they do try to bounce it off the ground in that bowling fashion to get it like up to bat, to try to get the batter to swing at it. But yes, it is more similarly to a baseball than as bouncy as a lacrosse ball.
Okay, thanks. That's all I'm seeing.
All right, then we will move on to our next sport. European handball, which will be at the Summer Olympics this year, so tune in. In high school, I also got to play this in the gym, so I actually played goalie when we did this, and I totally broke the rules because the goalie's not supposed to leave the crease, but I did anyways because it's gym class. But European handball is next. European handball is the national sport of Iceland. The court is 40 meters long by 20 meters wide. The goals are 2 meters high by 3 meters wide, so 6 feet by 9 feet. And each team has 6 players in what they would call the court or the field, and then each team has 1 goalie. The game consists of 2 30-minute halves, and I believe they are on a running clock, like soccer. And the European handball first appeared in the Olympics in 1936, then reappeared in its current format in 1972. There is American style handball that is played more like tennis, where you have a softer rubber ball and you use your hand as the racket and you hit the ball off the wall, and you usually play twos or you can play doubles, but one team hits the ball against the wall, the other team would then have to field it off the bounce, quote unquote, and hit it back, and that's how points are scored in American style handball. But we're talking European handball, which will be at the Olympics this summer. Next slide. European handball rules and how to play. So very similar to basketball. The game starts with a jump ball in order to see who starts with the possession. And very similarly to basketball, the opposite team will start with the ball at the start of the second half. Players are allowed a combination of 3 steps or 3 dribbles when in possession of the ball. So you can take a step, dribble, take a step, dribble, take a step, dribble, and then from there you have to either pass the ball to a teammate or shoot the ball. If you take 2 steps without a dribble, or I don't know, you can't really dribble without a step, but if you take 3 steps without a dribble, or you take 4 steps, or you would then, it turns over possession. So you would have to leave the ball there. The opposing team would get to start with the ball at that point. Players in the possession of the ball move the ball down the court in order to get into scoring position. Handball does have a lot of passing, but since the court isn't as long as some of the other sports, it is pretty quick to get up and down in 3 steps with 3 dribbles. Defenders are not allowed to make physical contact with the player in possession of the ball. It's almost very similar to basketball in that sense, where you really can't just like tackle or like hug somebody or impede their progress, especially when they're trying to dribble. You can defend them with your hands out, but once you touch them, it could be called a foul, which in that case, it could lead to a free throw or things of that nature. However, defenders are allowed to knock down and intercept passes and shots from opposing players. Rules continued. Goalies are the only players allowed in the crease, which is a 6-meter half circle around the goal. So as you can see, that's the yellow portion of the field, or the court that we're seeing here. As you can see, no players are allowed in that crease. And then you see that there is the free throw line. That is that dotted line that goes around as well, which is at 9 meters. And then the 7-meter penalty shot, if there's one given to a team. Like I said, the line at 7 meters indicates where a penalty or free shot is awarded from. The arc at 9 meters, which is the free throw line, free throw zone, where both the defensive players and offensive players are allowed to position themselves. So a lot of the times you'll see that when they're lining up, they'll kind of be lined up around the arc here, the half circle, and they'll use a series of screens and picks to try to get players open, so then they can either take a shot from the free throw, which is 9 meters, into that 6-meter line. But once you get to that 6-meter line, you are not allowed to put your foot in the crease while in possession of the ball. That leads to a turnover. So players who possess the ball are allowed to leap from behind the crease and shoot within the crease, so long as the player's feet does not hit the ground before they release the ball. So as you can see down in my little example, there's a gentleman in the air with the ball cocked in throwing position. So if we were playing and Katie passed me the ball at the 9-meter line. I'm allowed to take 3 steps and jump before the 6-meter line of the crease to try to put the ball in the goal. Now, the ball must leave my hands before my first foot touches the crease. If it does not, it's a penalty. It's not a penalty, it's a turnover, and the other team is allowed the ball. Now, mind you, you can score by throwing the ball in the air. You could bounce the ball off the ground. So when you do that jump shot, it's very key to try to figure out how you want to do it, where you're throwing it before you jump into the air. Because like I said, if your foot touches the ground, but yes, you can bank the ball off the ground by bouncing it. You could throw it right in. Like it's very similar to like lacrosse in terms of the way they score. Whether it's a direct shot on net or if they try to bounce it off the ground. Right? Scoring. Every goal is worth 1 point. Teams will alternate possession of the ball and will work to score on the opposing team. Like in soccer, player who commits a foul will be signed a yellow card for their first offense. A player who receives a second card will have to sit out 2 minutes, like it's like a penalty, like in hockey, leaving their team down 1 player for those 2 minutes. A team can choose to substitute their goalie for an additional field player, especially if a team is up a fielder to begin with. So say you're on that penalty, you have 6 men in the field, they have 5 guys in the field, you can substitute that goalie to have an extra attacker during that time frame. If a player gets a third card, which would be almost like the red card in soccer, they will be removed from the game. Like I said, if a player is deemed to be interfered with through physical contact during a shot on net, they could be awarded a penalty shot, and that is also at the discretion of the referee. All right, so Katie, do we have any questions on European handball?
We do. And you
Wonderful.
answered one of them actually. So this one right here is, are there any local teams to watch and where?
I am unsure if there is anything local to watch, but after we're off, I can do some looking to see. I don't know locally, but I do know on like ESPN sometimes, and sometimes you can catch it on like NBCSN or CNBC or MSNBC. Or maybe sometimes FS1. Some of the other stations, they do have European handball on TV. I have seen it on ESPN and I think on like MSNBC or NBC Sports in the past. I know they do have some championships that go on around the world. I know the European has a league that I was watching maybe a couple months ago, and I think that's one of the reasons why I decided to do this, because European handball came on the TV. I was like, oh, it'd be really. I remember when I used to play. So no, but depending on who asked that question, Katie, I can do some digging and get back to you on that, and you can let them know if there is somewhere that they could watch locally or participate locally.
It did go through my mind that this person was wondering about cricket actually for the local teams, and they just put that in the Q&A.
Oh,
So
local cricket. I
Sorry
do
about
not know of any local cricket teams, but like I said, the same thing for European handball. I can do some digging to see if there is anything local for that.
Perfect. I think I actually saw people playing cricket over near the Paddock Golf Dome on one of those little baseball diamonds. But anyways, so we'll get back to you about that. This next question is, what happens if someone kicks the ball?
Oh, so like if someone kicks the ball toward the net, or
Not
just in
sure.
general? So I believe it's very similar to like basketball. Like if someone puts their foot out to try to stop the ball, I believe it's kind of like just a dead ball. The team who kicked the ball, the team who was throwing or passing or throwing the ball would retain possession at that point. So if someone tries to if someone tries to block a pass or if you're blocking a shot, I think it's okay. I think in terms of like if they're shooting on goal and they're shooting behind the free throw line and someone throws a ball and it hits the person's leg, if they're intentionally trying to stop it, like by putting their foot out or trying to kick the ball toward the net, it's dead ball, and then the team who was either trying to pass it or was attacking would then would retain possession in that point in time.
Okay, thanks, Ryan. That's all I'm seeing.
All right. Next, Alai, also called the world's fastest sport. This game is played on a 3-walled court called the Fronton. The first Fronton was built in Spain in 1798. The first Fronton was built in the United States in St. Louis, Missouri for the 1904 World's Fair, but closed 2 months later. The first Fronton to host professionals in the United States in Alai was in 1924 in Miami, Florida. At the height of the sport's popularity in the 1980s, there were 16 Frontons around the United States. The most active Fronton left in the United States is in Dania Beach, which is called Dania Alai. It's also connected to a casino. So as you can see, these gentlemen are in the Fronton. You see the back wall, the side wall, and this gentleman is using his glove to throw the ball at it. So this is the Fronton. So if you look here, the Fronton is usually between 76 and 178 feet long, usually 40 to 45 feet high and wide. So the picture of the left kind of breaks down each wall. So on the left wall, you have these markers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, P, 8, 9, 10, and then depending on how long it is, it could go higher. Then you have the front wall, and you have those same markers on the ground here. To the right is considered out of bounds, but balls can be played there if in the air or chose to be played. So you have the P, which is the pass line. So all serves have to be thrown from a certain point, and they have to come back a certain point, which I'll explain in the next slide. So if you look at this, this is kind of if you were standing in the Fronton or standing on looking at the seats from behind it, this is kind of what you'd be playing in on this picture to the right. So the ball kind of looks very similar to a baseball. It's called the pelota. The glove is called the cesta punta, which goes over the hand and is secured on your wrist. So as you can see, the player slips this glove over his arm with his hand kind of curving around the inside, and it gets tied around the wrist. There are 2 formats used in Alai. There is a 3-set match, which is 1 team versus 1 team, very similar to badminton or volleyball, where it's rally scoring. First team that wins, first team that hits the point in total that is needed wins, or round robin. In Dania Beach Alai, at the height of it, they would have 8 or 9 teams who'd be playing in a match. What would happen is when 2 teams would start on the field, 1 team would serve. The team that scores a point stays on. The team that lost would be moved off, and then the next team would come on, and then the team who won the point would serve, and they would play like that. Usually there'd be like 9 teams. That there would be 9 teams that would play in these round robins, and the first team that defeated all 8 other teams, so I think you have to score 9 points, would be deemed the winner of that match in the round robin format. In a set match, 2 teams compete in 3 matches. First to win 2 of the matches is declared the winner. The first 2 matches are played to 15 points, and the third set is usually paid to 5 points. The round robin format, like I was talking about, uses 8 teams per match and are played to 7 or 9 points. The team that scores a point during these matches remains on the Fronton until a serve that ends in that team not scoring. At this point, the team who came on to challenge the serving team, like I said, then assumes to serve. Once all team have had a chance to be on the Fronton, then each point scored goes up to 2 points. So once you go through the pretty much the whole quote-unquote order, then it's worth 2 points. The sport, like I said, can be played in a single or pair format. The one rule, though, the pelota or the ball must be caught and thrown in a fluid motion in order to count as a legal return or rally. If the official deems that the motion was not caught and thrown in a fluid motion, one fluid motion, the opposite team is awarded a point. So if there's some sort of hesitation, they do allow you to corral the ball. So you'd be taking it in, but you can't just stop. Then once you collect the ball and it's settled, then you must return it all in one motion. So that's one thing that I found quite funny because you can't just stop it. Very similar to like tennis or volleyball. The ball must keep moving. And if it's stopped, that it's dead and the other team has scored a point. Scoring. The match starts with a coin flip to determine which single or pair starts with the serve in a match set. The serving team will bounce the ball before the serve mark, like I said, which is 11, which on this one would be a little further back, and hit the front wall of the fronton. When the ball comes back off of the front wall of the fronton, it must bounce between the 4 and you see the P, which is like the pass line. It must bounce between those two to be counted as legal. If it hits before, it's an illegal serve, or if it hits after, it's an illegal serve. Yep, like I said, if it hits before or after, it's an illegal serve, and the point is awarded to the opposite team. Once the rally begins, each team is allowed to catch the ball out of the air, or they call it on the fly, or after it bounces once on the fronton floor. If a team lets the ball bounce twice before returning to throw, the opposite team is awarded the point. Now, remember how I discussed a few back how there's this white line down the side? A team can grab a ball off of the fly and return it in this out of bounds area to put it back into play. However, if you hit it off the wall and it bounces in this out of bounds area, it is deemed the opposite team's point because your return or rally went out of bounds. All right, the area without a cart is considered foul or out of bounds. The players can use this area to retrieve a ball that is bounced legally and return it into play in the front wall. If the ball is being, like I said, if the ball is being served or return has initial bounce in this area, the opposite team is awarded a point. Teams are also awarded a point if an official deems that a player is attempting to return the pelota was interfered with, kind of very similar to our interfering with the player in the field in cricket. So that's high Alai. And lastly, actually, let's stop there, Katie. Does anyone have questions about high Alai?
We have a comment. It says, I went to a match once, had no idea what was going on. You could place bets on both teams and the players.
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure. Oh yeah. At the height of it, especially in Dania Beach, Florida, they were saying they were getting, I think they said at the height of it, they were averaging at sometimes like 1,000 spectators per match. And they would be running X amount of matches per day. And that's what you could do. You could bet on players to score points. You could bet on teams to score, teams to win. So it was kind of like its own sport within the casino down there. So I did do a little bit of research into this too. And it was quite interesting because I did the same thing. Like I've seen it, I've seen pictures of it, I've seen people playing it. Mostly the like you'll see them in like when I was a kid, we had them. They were pretty much just like little handheld plastic cesta puntas with just a little wiffle ball, and you throw them back and forth and catch it just like that. So I remember playing with that stuff as a kid. But then I did the same thing. I started watching this, and I was like, how are they even scoring? Then after reading it, I was like, okay, now it makes sense. But no, if you went in there with no knowledge, you would be very confused, as I could imagine you may have been during that time. But oh yeah, they let you bet on anything there when it comes to high
I'm
Alai.
still very confused by this. So if I may ask my own clarifying question, and I'm
Yeah.
sorry everybody if you're understanding, because I'm just not. So you have to serve, it hits in a certain line, and then somebody has to scoop it up with the fluid motion. Then do they throw it back at the wall?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then
they
like
throw
it
it.
just continues? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So
Like a faster wall ball, if you will.
yes, so yeah, so
Okay.
so like let's say we were playing one-on-one, Katie. I would have to serve it behind the mark 11, which is the service line. In order to be counted as legal, the ball would have to bounce between that 4 mark and that 7 mark for it to be legal for you to play it back. At that point, though, once you receive that ball and return it, now we're in rally mode, and now you can play it off the fly or off the bounce. So it's very similar to like American handball with throwing it off, and the opposite team has to field it off the bounce or out of the air. So yeah, so it's pretty much, but it has to hit those marks in order to be counted as a legal serve. Like say I threw it, it bounced off the Fronton front wall, but hit at like 3, you would be awarded a point and you would then have service.
Okay. Interesting. So like racquetball with this type of thing. Okay. I
Yep.
got the picture now. Thank you.
No problem at all. No. Any other questions on that before we move on to rugby?
I am not seeing any.
All right. So the last sport I decided to go over was rugby. This I know we do have locally. There is the Buffalo Rugby Club. My friend Mike Lang is actually the coach and captain of the team. They have gone all around the U.S. and have gone over to Europe to play rugby. So that is local. If anyone wants more information to watch on that, I can get it to them. Katie, just let me know, and I could give you some dates and times. And I know even like some of the local colleges do have rugby team. I know a few of my friends when I went to Buff State played rugby, and Mike also played rugby at Buff State. So, so rugby is still strong and popular here in the area. But let's get into it. So rugby started as we know it today at the rugby school in Warwickshire, England in 1845. The first ever formal match took place in December 1857 in Scotland between Edinburgh University and the Edinburgh Academicals. In 1895, the Rugby Football Union splits into 2 factions after disagreements over representation and pay to players. The Rugby League World Cup started in 1954 and is played every 4 years and features the top 14 teams in the world. The last one was held in 2017, which is one faction. The Rugby World Cup, which is another faction, started in 1987 and is played every 4 years and features the top 20 teams in the world, and the last one of those was held in 2019. Rugby rules and how to play. Rugby is played on a 100-meter by 70-meter field, which is, in terms of a football field, it's the same distance from goal line to goal line, but it's about 16 to 20 yards wider in terms of the field itself. The match consists of 2 40-minute halves with a 10-minute break in between, which you could call halftime. The game clock is a running clock, very similar to soccer, and there is no extra time awarded for stoppages of play, which is different than soccer, because soccer, they do try to do their best on how much stoppage time there was, and they usually add it on the end of each half. Each team consists of 15 players with 7 substitutes. The players are numbered 1 through 15 and each have a very specific role that they play within the team. Once a player is substituted, they cannot return to a match. There are 8 forwards. The positions include the hooker, the prop, the second row, the flanker, and number 8. And then you have 7 backs. Positions include the scrum half, the fly half, the inside center, the outside center, 2 wingers, and a fullback. So you have 8 forward positions with 7 backs, which are usually, if you look at a standard formation, you have the 8 guys kind of aligned in a couple different rows and stacked. Then your 7 backs are kind of always on a diagonal slant. So if you have to pitch the ball, you have a guy back to the right or left of you, depending on how you want to set up and where the ball is at. How to play continued. The match starts with a kickoff from midfield. Once the ball is in play, The team in possession attempts to score by advancing the ball down the field via backward passes and forward kicks to try to get into the try zone, which is like the end zone in football. When a player is tackled, the ball is placed into the scrum and cannot be advanced until it hits the back foot of the last person of the scrum. So you see how we have the 8 forwards. So depending on what side of the ball, so let's just say, you think of it, the scrum is the center with the ball is the center of the scrum with each team having their forwards pushing over that ball to try to get to a point where their team can pick it up. So the scrum is where you see all the guys locked arm to arm, where they're moving back and forth, tossing to advance themselves. So where that ball is sitting, once that last person in the scrum passes that ball, their backs can then pick it up, pitch it backwards, and try to start advancing the ball down the field. Okay, let's see. Boom, 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 last person in the scrum. The scrum, like I said, is a set piece formed by the front 8 players of each team. The ball is thrown in the middle of the group. Each team pushes against each other. The teams assembled 8 men to contest for possession of the ball. Scrums restart play after certain minor infractions. It could be something like someone's tackled, could be some sort of penalty or whistle blown, dead ball foul, thing like that. The scrum ends when one team gains possession of the ball and moves down the field, as I stated. So, if I'm just kind of going to go through these different pictures to kind of show everything that's going on here. So the picture on the left, top left, you see how you have your forwards numbered 1 through 8. Those are the guys that partake in the scrum. So if you look at the picture to the right of it, that is the scrum with the ball sitting right underneath someone's foot. So it looks like in this picture that the orange team has leverage. They're pushing forward. Once the scrum of the orange team passes that ball, their backs can then pick it up. And you see the one guy standing up, that's one of their backs whose job is to grab that ball and send it back to start the advancement back down the field. If you look at the bottom left picture with the 3 gentlemen in the blue shirt, that's kind of what the scrum formation looks like when it gets started. You see, you kind of have your 1, 2s, and 3s kind of start the lock up of it, and then the 5 guys behind them try to fit in and piece in to help push the pile to break that plane of the back foot. In the middle is what the rugby ball looks like. It's definitely longer and more ovular than the football, like a U.S. football that comes to the points at the end. The picture on the bottom right, I'll explain after we get there, and then the free kick I'll also explain. Scoring. Points can be scored in 4 ways. First way, a try is when a player places the ball down in their opponent's dead area behind the goal. 5 points are awarded for this. So, if we're looking at the field where the 2 posts are, let me think here. Okay, like I said, I have to think on this one because it's been a little while since I talked about it. Okay, so that's a conversion kick. So pretty much there's a goal line, which I believe is signified by the red and white stripe. What would happen is if the ball is placed over that line, which is the opponent's try zone or dead zone, that team would score 5 points. That is done through the moving of the ball via those backward passes down the field. The second way is a conversion kick. Conversion kick is a free kick that is awarded to a team after a try to earn 2 bonus points. So it's kind of like the point after attempt in football where they kick the field goal or can go for 2. A successful kick needs to pass between the upper post and top bar on the goal. So pretty much it has to go through the uprights over the post, not under it, in order to get those 2 conversion points. A penalty kick. A penalty kick will gain a team 3 points and is awarded to a team when the opposing team causes an infringement. So if there's a foul, something of that nature, a team could be awarded a penalty kick, in which at that point, if it does go through the uprights the same way will be given 3 points. A drop goal can be kicked out of the hand as long as the ball bounces first and can earn a team 3 points. This is very similar to a drop kick in football. So I believe a few years back, New England did a drop kick in one of their games. So pretty much what happens is I get past the ball, I drop the ball to the ground, it bounces off the ground. At that point, I can kick it. If it goes through the goal or the upright posts and over the top bar, then you're awarded 3 points. And with that, Miss Earl, do we have any questions on rugby? Katie?
I was muted. Yes, we have some questions and comments. The first comment is, I have seen high schools play rugby, the Kenton high schools.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. This next person is wondering, is Australian rules football the same or how do they differ?
Ooh, that's a good question. I believe depending on, like I said earlier, the World Rugby Federation split. I believe depending on which federation they're playing under, there are different tweaks to the rules, but they're all generally the same.
Okay, thank you. The next is, how do you know what a penalty is?
I believe probably tackling someone without the ball would be a penalty. I'm assuming that if something happens in the scrum, it could be deemed a penalty. I believe if you move the ball forward, it could be deemed a penalty. If a forward pass as opposed to a backward pass, they can call it. But I believe that's also at the discretion of the referees, seeing as rugby is one of the most physically intense games with very little padding. And like, if you're playing a sport that's called a scrum, I have a feeling there's very few and far between penalties. But I believe, like I said, that's at the discretion of the referees who are officiating the game. I have a feeling that depending on what's going on and things of that nature, I know that there was one photo that I didn't describe, and it's where these gentlemen are being lifted up. I believe there is a penalty assessed if you interfere with the person who's trying to catch that ball before they're placed on the ground. If they're I forgot what exactly happens in this point in time where it's like a jump ball, but if a person is interfered with while in the air and trying to attempt to catch it, I believe the opposing team who interferes with that person is deemed to be penalized, because I believe at some point in time both teams have themselves in a formation to go up and catch a jump ball like that. So if one of the players interfere while trying to attempt it, that team is penalized, which could then result in the penalty kick.
Okay. You mentioned little padding. Is there any padding that they wear?
I believe they do wear undershirts that do have like some padding over the shoulders and in the ribs, but it's not like football or hockey pads like you see. They're like literally, I don't know, like the basketball players, they have some of those undershirts that have like padding on their shoulders, in their ribs and things like that. I'm pretty sure that's pretty much all they're wearing are just their unis. And then pretty much just like a compression shirt with maybe some padding underneath, but that's about it. Probably the guys in the scrum probably have maybe a thicker padding on their shoulders, but it's nothing like football or hockey.
Okay, thanks. This last question I'm seeing is, should Katie play winger?
She could, yes. Katie would be a good winger.
And what would that entail again before I agree to it?
So pretty much you'd be, so there's forwards and backs. The backs are the guys who like move the ball around by pitching it backwards to try to advance the ball down the field to score. Your forwards are your guys who play in the scrum, who use leverage and are like blockers more or less. So you would want to be you'd want to be a winger.
Okay, I'll have to think about it, Dan. Thank
Unless
you.
you want to play in the scrum.
I don't think I want to play at all.
She's like, can I just play badminton?
Yeah, badminton, I'm all about it. Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions here. Ryan, I don't know if you want to stop sharing and just quickly pull up your Q&A. Maybe you got something I didn't. I want to, since we have some time here, just make sure we get all the questions.
Yeah. I am not seeing anything other than what you've asked.
All right, some of them came right to me. Okay.
All right. But if anyone does have any other wacky world sports that they'd like covered, I can always do a part 2. So if you do have any ideas or sports that you'd like that you maybe have passed, maybe we'll talk about cornhole since that's all over ESPN right now, or the ACL championships. So maybe we'll talk about some tailgating games or something like that. But like I said, if you do have another sport that you'd like to cover in terms of the cricket, if there's anywhere local to watch, I will look it up. So I will see if there's anywhere local or if there's some sort of cricket league that if you wanted to go take it and check it out, you can do so.
All right. Thank you, Ryan. We
Thank
did
you,
have a
Ms. Earl.
question come through. Is there trivia today? Trivia is next Friday at 12, so the 18th. So we'll see you then. But all right, Ryan, thank you for all the time you put into researching that. And to everyone who's on, thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your day.
Well, thank you for having me, Ms. Earl, and thank everyone for coming and watching.
All right, bye.